Howie Roseman and such. Anyway, all right, back to you though. My Packers are on the clock now, so this will be interesting.
Yeah, your Packers are on the clock, and
they're kind of an anomaly, to be honest. Like I had a tough time picking it. So go ahead.
They were tough. There was a lot of different ways we could have gone here, but I ended up landing on let's just shore up the offensive line. Jordan Love, and we're taking Amarius Smith. I don't know who y'all's right tackle is. You know who? I mean,
it was Zach Tom, and actually, I think he ended the year pretty well.
And so okay, now this is so when I had the initial Mims thing, I think I had read somewhere that the Packers are debating moving him to the interior line, like center or something.
We have Josh Myers, but probably guard or
maybe guard. I don't know. I had seen somewhere they were debating moving him. So then I like read, because whenever I'm doing all my picks, I'm looking at depth charts, I'm looking at different spots. I'm like, pick makes sense. I had read that, and I'm like, okay, if that happens, Marius Mims, we're slotting him in at right tackle. Boom, we're good to go. You also lose Bakhtiari, so you kind of shore up the tackle spots a little better. Obviously, Bakhtiari is kind of on the left. Talks about Mims is on the right. But I mean, Mims, throughout his entire college career, didn't allow a single sack. I actually really liked when you put him at Miami, because, with Tua being a lefty, a guy who that good against the pass, like I love that, because that is his blind side. But regardless, we're going to shore it up a little bit for the Packers here. We're going to get Mims. I don't know. It was just a spot where, like I said, I'm not familiar enough with the Packers, and I feel like they needed a lot of things. So I went with Mims. That kind of we filled the spot. I'm interested to see who you take, we'll get it after all four of my picks, but interested in your thoughts on that. Then for the Buccaneers, we're going with Nate Wiggins, the corner that you mentioned. Carlton Davis is gone. Need help in the cornerback room. I liked what you said about, Wiggins can kind of be a chess piece. He's not quite McDuffie, but he's kind of like that mold. And I feel like that's kind of what the Buccaneers secondary, they like those kind of guys. We've seen that with the selection of I'm looking at so many names today. The safety, son of
Antoine Winfield Jr.
Yeah. Also kind of similar of like he can do a lot. But I feel like Wiggins is more of like the cornerback version of that, where Winfield Jr. could do a lot in the secondary and the safety spots. Wiggins can kind of move around. He can play outside. He can play inside. You can do a lot with him. With the their cornerback room and the state of that defense. A couple ways that we could have gone. I thought about going edge rusher because I believe they lost Shaquille Barrett. But with the edge rushers that were available on my board at this point, the only one that I really considered was Chop Robinson. And I just didn't feel super confident in them wanting to take him over a guy like Nate Wiggins at this spot, because I feel like Wiggins a little bit higher pedigree. If somebody like a Jared Verse or, shockingly somehow Dallas Turner Latu have fallen to this point, I think it's a shoo-in and that's who they take. But they're not here. So we go with Nate Wiggins. And speaking of Chop Robinson, the Arizona Cardinals, I think we add an edge rusher here and we're going to take Chop. So at the beginning of the draft, I had them selecting Malik Neighbors. We've addressed offense. So I feel like a lot of the offensive linemen that I felt kind of fit in this spot, with the Jackson Powers Johnson and Graham Barton, these kind of guys, Fuaga, they're all gone. I feel like those are the kind of linemen that Arizona would have been going with here. So because last year they took the guy from Ohio State.
Johnson Jr. Yeah.
Johnson Jr. So I don't think that they would need to tackle. So some of those linemen that I felt like kind of fit at this spot, it felt like a little bit of a reach. So we're going to go and get an edge rusher in Chop Robinson. Arizona's defensive line is just a mess. They have Zaven Collins, I think, at one of the spots, and he had like 3.5 sacks last year. I can't remember the guy on the other side, but I think he was a little bit better than Zaven Collins. I think he was their second round pick last year that they took on the other side. Regardless, there's just not a lot of confidence that is being inspired out of the Cardinals pass rush. So we're going to add Chop Robinson out of Penn State. And we're going to call that a day for the Arizona Cardinals, right? Are you looking it up? Who's the other guy?
Once again, I'm not sure the site's. If there's LJ Collier's not a rookie.
It was a guy with.
I forget the Dennis Gardeck.
Might have been. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Regardless, the production was not good from the edge rushers, which is why I want to Chop here.
Dennis Gardeck,
so yeah. Now this might be. I don't know. I feel like this won't happen because this feels a little too perfect. But number 28, we're taking Brian Thomas Jr., Buffalo Bill. I'd be really excited about this draft pick. I feel like it would fit so perfectly. A guy of his athleticism, speed, and size with a guy like Josh Allen, I think it would just be such a fantastic fit. Like I said, it feels a little unrealistic because I think Brian Thomas probably is off the board before this. If you look at my draft as a whole to this point, we had a run on receivers in the top 6 where we have 3 in a row and not a single one since. I don't believe that's actually how it's going to pan out. I don't think that there's going to be from 6 all the way 28, not a single receiver taken. So I think Brian Thomas Jr. is not going to be here, but I think they're going to take a receiver. No Stephon Diggs. They're a win now team. I don't think you can go out there without a receiver round. If you do, Bills fans might turn into what Packers fans did, where they wanted a receiver first round for so long and they just never really got it. And I guess still to this point, technically y'all haven't, right? Because wasn't Watson early second?
Second round pick.
Yeah.
But we left out that.
I mean, he worked out anyway.
Dobbs and Jaden Reed, and we got other guys I've actually filled in. So
yeah, it's worked out anyway.
Acceptable now.
But even that, like that was kind of the transition period, right? So it's like it's more acceptable with Jordan Love to not, have the highest of picks invested in these receivers. To where with a guy like Josh Allen playing in his prime, I think it would be downright insane if they come out of this first round without a top tier receiver. Especially considering some of the names that are still on the board at this point, even if Thomas is gone. So, yeah, I'm taking Brian Thomas Jr., Buffalo Bills. And that is my set of 4. Very interested to see your thoughts, Packers pick.
Honestly, looking at the Packers depth chart too, Marius Mims is a really good fit too, because like I said, the outblock Tiari. Like, I'm not sure if we'll move Tom to the opposite side or what, but regardless, yeah, I think Mims will help provide a little bit of stability there. I just don't know what the Packers, because I feel like we like to go late round with linemen and develop them. That's literally what half our line is. Really, the highest pick I'm thinking of is Elton Jenkins, and he's a second round pick. But yeah, I would assume, hey, you're confident in Jordan Love. It is that, like I said, if we do pick Marius Mims, I will be very happy. I will not be upset like I was when we picked, ironically, Jordan Love. Yeah, it's honestly too. And before I feel like 2 Packers are one of those prime trade out candidates. Yeah, because like you alluded to, right now is like kind of a tough spot where like it feels like. I mean, we don't need Brian Thomas Jr. That's the only other like first round obvious guy I'd have. So it's like, yeah, I feel like Green Bay might. At least the way your board fell, like right now, and honestly, the board may be like this, very similar to this. Is where like I would not be shocked if we trade out and then I don't get to see a first round pick, and many other Packers in the first round because we've done it before.
I agree.
And then I like Nate Wiggins, Chop Robinson. I'm with you. This is about the range that he's gonna go, and I'll comment on. And I like me some Brian Thomas Jr. and I'll comment on him soon because if you want to go to my board, he's still there too. And I will comment too, just before, because we'll probably go soon. Apparently with him, there's also been off the field and injury concern. Apparently it's linked. Like he had off the field injury that is a concern.
Interesting.
So that's also maybe another reason why he may fall on draft day. So keep an eye on that, people. But onto my mock as showed on the screen here. So my Packers now on the clock, and this is where I went Cooper DeJean to be that. Because apparently our new DC likes to run single high safety. I know we signed Xavier McKinney, but I feel like McKinney can be versatile in and outside the box. And like I mentioned earlier, in John's with Cooper DeJean, like you had him mocked to the Vikings. Hopefully that doesn't happen because I would not like to see that happen. But yeah, I feel like DeJean can be kind of like a Micah Hyde, where yes, at times he can play corner, in certain situations or and spots, but for the most part, you're going to want him playing zone. I think he mainly excels in zone. I don't trust him too much in man and sticking with guys, especially if you want him to be, on the boundary covering number 1 guys. And to be fair, they don't run a lot of man at Iowa, so it's tough to evaluate his man skills. But once again, very good in zone. I feel like he's going to at least be a very good safety. That's why I comped him, like I said, to Micah Hyde. I just feel like he's very much like that in regards. So yes, he could be good at corner, but I think he's gonna be better at in the back end or just as like a chess piece. So hopefully he can be. For my Packers, it'd be interesting to see though, regardless where he gets drafted, how he is used, wherever he goes. So I have him at the Packers there at 25. Going to 26 is where I have for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Jackson Powers Johnson. Missing. Why am I blanking on their old center's name? Ryan Jensen. obviously no longer there. The line's kind of gotten bad over the past couple of years. They've invested in Baker. Like you mentioned, one of the, if not the best center in the draft, one of the best. And I feel like he's like one of the guys we've had in previous years. I think of like Tyler Linderbaum, kind of like for the Ravens, where you draft him late here, he's gonna plug and play, and your center spot should be good as long as he's playing there. He'll be solid to kind of to be that guy for you. So that's what I have for the Bucks there. I did think about edge rusher and corner as well, but yeah, who knows? Like I said, how the board will fall for them in actuality. For the Cardinals, though, I went with corner. I went with Terrion Arnold. He's my third corner. I don't think Arnold's in the class of Wiggins and Mitchell, where he's going to be a pure one-on-one guy. And as you can see on the screen, that's because I worry about his man. I think he can be a very good zone corner. I think, honestly, I hate to comp him to other Alabama corners, because I know every person's unique and individual. But it reminds me a lot of like a Drake Kirkpatrick type guy, where he's okay. He might be okay in man as they develop him, but I think he's going to be more of a solid zone guy, a really good number 2. And yeah, like you said, very good run defense. He's very physical. I think he can obviously play in the slot and outside. My main worry too is speed, in terms of just downfield speed, because I think he ran with like a 4 or 5, kind of ran a slow 40 that you don't want that kind of a slow 40 out of your number 1 corner. But regardless, he can be a solid corner at the end of the NFL. Remind me like a lesser Tre'Davious White coming out. So we'll see if he can live up to that. And then at 28, I had Brian Thomas Jr.
Yeah.
So it's funny that you put him there. It feels like a kind of too, like I agree with you. It felt like, I smiled too when I initially made a mock. I was like, there's no way he falls.
It feels
far,
so
right?
obvious, right?
Yeah, but it's like, it does feel like a perfect fit, especially when apparently the reports via, because my boy Sims, when I listened to his mock, and he mentioned, I think he had him here too. So it just seems like a popular spot because of some of the concerns, with him via evaluation wise and off the field apparently too. So very ironic that you and I both had him at Buffalo, and seems to be a popular spot. So we'll see if that works out for the Bills, and I'm sure they would love that, like you mentioned, to get to at least leave the draft with a wide receiver that you can maybe build around or be the guy for Josh Allen. And he does fit well with that offense to take the top off, or be the the explosive yak guy, while you still have Dalton Kincaid and Khalil Shakir kind of being the more short to intermediate guys.
Right.
So, yeah. So yeah, you see,
he
very
is gonna
similar.
explode in fantasy drafts if you.
Don't say that. Don't say that. Don't say that.
Listen, in our dynasty league,
our friends listen to the stop.
I'm just saying, in our dynasty league, in our Superflex league, where I have the 7th pick, he's one of the people that I think could be there. And if he's on the Buffalo Bills, I'm gonna take him. Right now, I'm gonna take him. So, but moving on, 29th pick, Detroit Lions for me. This one is a little interesting because the Lions don't really need a ton, but the one biggest need that I do think they need to address is that secondary. And so we're taking best available corner. This is where Kool-Aid McKinstry comes off for me. Just simply put, they need a corner, and Kool-Aid, he can kind of do a lot of everything. I don't think that he's necessarily elite in any facet of playing corner. But if you're the Lions, you just need improvement, because that secondary was the one thing that I think really held them back last year in pretty much every game that they lost. It felt like every time they were in a dogfight, you couldn't really rely on that secondary to come through for you in key moments. And so you add Kool-Aid McKinstry. Like I said, not elite in anything. He's not going to go out there and, a ton of interceptions. He's not going to go out there and necessarily lock anybody down like every single receiver and be like, the best corner in the league. But I think that he can be really solid for you. I think he could be a serviceable number 1 and a really good number 2. And I think that he also has the versatility to play in a lot of different spots. So yeah, Kool-Aid McKinstry, it felt like a pretty easy plug and play for a team that has a pitiful second. Then we get to the Baltimore Ravens. Once again, kind of a lot of different spots they could go because they're really good at drafting historically, and they don't have a lot of holes. But this is where I thought, we got Zay Flowers last year. Let's pair him with another receiver that I think can kind of complement him well. This is where I have Adonai Mitchell going. Big-bodied guy, really fast. I think that gives you to where Zay can do a lot of stuff in and outside. Adonai, you just pop him on the outside, let that guy run a streak, and just let Lamar toss it to him. That's the kind of receiver that he can be. I think it also gives you another red zone option that's not just Mark Andrews, because, although Zay has so many great things, he's a little bit of a smaller guy who, works in space. In the red zone, you don't have that. And Adonai Mitchell, that's one of the best things about him, is that red zone prowess that he does have and was able to show off over at Texas. And you can see that considering that he was able to get 11 touchdowns this year. So yeah, Adonai Mitchell. And also he was, I think, my fifth rated corner off the board, and this is my fifth receiver off the board, and this is my fifth receiver coming off the board here for the Baltimore Ravens. And I think that just takes their offense to that next level, to where, imagine that passing attack where you've got Mark Andrews, Zay Flowers, Adonai Mitchell with Lamar Jackson as your quarterback, and then your running game surrounding Lamar and that offensive line. I feel like the Ravens offense would be truly deadly. And if you want to compete against teams like Kansas City, you got to be able to put up points, and that's what they can do, especially with the way that Kansas City's defense is now built. You need a lot of options to score. So that is what I did for the Ravens. We get to the Niners. I felt like this was a spot where they could trade because they don't really need anything. But I figured, you know what? Let's reinforce the tackle spot, because I believe they just lost their right tackle. And did you take the exact one based on your reaction? We got Tyler Guyton out of Oklahoma going to the Niners here. I considered him for some of the earlier spots like Green Bay, like Dallas, but I don't think that he ends up there. Feels a little bit more raw of a prospect, but I think that the Niners, it's the kind of the perfect spot that he can develop, because he can be really good for you. He played majority right tackle, which is where he's going to slot in this specific spot. But he does have some versatility of playing left tackle if needed, post Terrence Williams. Trent Williams. I was like, that doesn't sound right. Trent Williams. And so, yeah, it just felt like if they don't trade out, plug and play right tackle spot, because what do the Niners love? They love building the trenches, being dominant in those two facets. And you get Tyler Guyton. He can help you with the run game. He can help protect your quarterback. He can help you dominate in the trenches and be that physical presence that they really like. And there you go. Feels like a Niners pick. And we reach the last pick of the draft. And I don't know if this is just something I do every year, where it feels like, oh my gosh, imagine if the Chiefs took like that receiver. That'd be gross. So we're going to go with Ladd McConkey out of Georgia. And that is my completed draft. I thought about doing the Xavier Worthy thing, but I figured they have Hollywood Brown, who kind of fills that role in the current way the offense is built, where you got Travis Kelce, who's kind of been your underneath guy, your over the middle stuff. Imagine having like two guys that could just dominate in that area. You add McConkey, because especially with Travis Kelce's age, at some point I do think that he's going to call it quits, and McConkey can just dominate for you in those kind of areas. It's open a lot. Like it just feels like, okay, if we're the Chiefs and we want to take some attention away from Travis Kelce, because everybody focuses on him in the biggest moments, and we want to try and move the ball downfield, and we had some issues with some of our receivers dropping the ball and not being reliable, let's just take arguably the most reliable receiver in the class when it comes to just getting open and catching the ball, with Ladd McConkey. So yeah, like I said, I didn't want to take the Xavier Worthy pick here, because it felt like that was more just trying to replace Tyreek Hill and somewhat repetitive of to what Hollywood Brown's strengths are. For Ladd would just be scary. So yeah, finished it off with Kool-Aid, Adonai Mitchell, Guyton, Ladd McConkey.
All right. So for this one, let me just do mine, because and then we can talk, because I think you already know. This is, I don't want to reiterate too, we did not share any we did not collaborate with our mocks at all. Like, this is all independent.
I will say too, the way that we know we didn't do that. Well, I guess they can't verify this, but I literally came up with my mock today. Like I didn't plan this like super far in advance. I spent a couple hours earlier before we started recording figuring this one out, because I'm the kind of person that if I figured this out weeks ago, then I probably would have a lot of change of opinions since then. So I waited till today.
I did mine yesterday. So we're both pretty recent. And regardless, we just are now sharing it with each other. So anyway, at 29, this is where I went with Chop Robinson for the Detroit Lions. Need another edgy eye opposite of Aiden Hutchinson. I know you put Kool-Aid here. I thought about Kool-Aid. I'm just not in love with him. I guess, and I do agree in regards to that. they probably will trade out and maybe get more picks, get Chop later or another edge guy they like. But at least Chop can be another pass rushing threat opposite of Aiden Hutchinson, maybe create some sort of duo there. And hey, that'll help you. That'll help lessen the blow of not having great corners if your pass rushes are really good. And if maybe their style too of running the ball, just eating clock on offense, this may help them out more, make teams less, run heavy and more pass happy. And boom, you got 2 edge rushers that you have to worry about now, as opposed to just Aiden Hutchinson. So that's what I have for the Lions at 29, and as Chop Robinson out of Penn State. And then 30, I went same ideology, Adonai Mitchell out of Texas for the Baltimore Ravens at 30. Like I said, it's like same ideology. Rashad Bateman's on the last year of his contract, and he has been dealing with a lot of injury stuff. And yeah, I think Mitchell gives him more of a boundary threat, like you mentioned. And I went with him over my guy. That's one of the reasons why I went with him over McConkey. I know I had McConkey higher in mine. I had McConkey as my 5, but like you mentioned, McConkey already kind of is a lesser kind of version of Zay Flowers, and that he's mainly going to dominate in the slot and is already kind of a smaller guy. So I feel like with the Ravens, get their boundary guy, like you mentioned, kind of a second red zone threat as opposed to complement Mark Andrews and such. So yeah, that's who I went at 30. And then at 31, I went with Tyler Guyton as well, out of Oklahoma. Like you already saw, very good. Obviously, very great in the good in the pass blocking, has some room to grow in the run blocking, but I'm sure that's something Kyle Shanahan can he's very good at getting his guys in the right position. And I'm hoping that, if they do get Guyton, make him more of a finisher. Obviously, he wasn't asked to run block a lot in the Big 12, and especially at Oklahoma. So that's another tough thing to kind of evaluate. But I feel like there is some meat on the bone with him. And I'm sure that the Niners coaching staff can get that out of him, especially playing in the NFL with other studs. I'm sure, that could be something that they can work on. So, him at 31 going to the Niners. And then ironically at 32 is where I had the same exact thought process. Lad McConkey, eat up the inside and intermediate areas, help out Kelsey, because we saw that, hey, the offense wasn't really the same. Who knows what happens with Rashee Rice. And like you mentioned, they have Hollywood. They got Hollywood Brown. We'll see what happens with old Kadarius Toney. But regardless, they have Hollywood Brown to be the guy that stretches their field. So like you said, McConkey can just be the secondary threat, especially if Rashee Rice is out for some time. And in the slot, probably work on the outside. And knowing Kansas City, they are great with motion, so they probably can motion him to the outside and give him free releases as well. So you don't have to worry about him getting jammed too much by NFL corners. And regardless, he may not get the number 1 guy anyway. He's just a rookie. So, I'm in complete agreement. Get Chiefs enough with the projects. The Sky Moores, who maybe there's more me in that bone, but maybe not, probably not. I think I feel like they're just going to go, hey, let's just get the rock solid kid that we know can contribute now, help us in our window. And maybe there's more meat in that bone too. You never know with those type of guys. So, it's very ironic that our final 3 were matching. That's why 4 of our final 5 were matching, really.
Yeah, that's Lions pick.
So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see how it all. And once again, like we both anticipate, there's going to be trades, so this is not going to be 100% accurate. This probably would look very much different. And sometimes it happens too that sometimes there's a run on a position that teams get scared of. Like it could be like we mentioned, all these linemen. There could be some of these teams jump up, like maybe the Bucks are scared or something, or your Cowboys get scared and want to move up to get Graham Barton in case there's a run on tackles in the teens or something, or guards in general. So, that's you're right on the money as to why I was reacting. I was like, man, we were really on the same page at the end there, unintentionally.
Yeah.
But overall, that's mine and that's yours. And like I said, it's very funny. We're similar but different. But obviously, we'll have to see how it all pans out. There's going to be surprises. I think personally, just to cap us off, Brock Bowers is going to be an interesting little tidbit. Where will he go? Because it feels like, it's tough to evaluate tight end. You know what I mean? And what team's going to value getting a tight end high in the draft, because we've seen it have mixed results. Honestly, most of the time, not great results. And like we mentioned before, tight end's always tough to project them translating straight away to the NFL. But it feels like Brock is one. And I know we said this before. I feel like Brock is one of those guys though that feels really pro ready. Right. So he should, but you never know.
Yeah, I mean, and I will say, just notable thing. I don't know if you had any guys like this. I personally did not mock JJ McCarthy into.
I saw that. Yes.
Like I've made my feelings about him clear. I don't necessarily think he's a bad quarterback, but I just think that he's like Jimmy G. He's kind of mediocre. He'll be serviceable. He won't be bad. He won't be elite. And to me, if I'm going to take a quarterback in the first round, and like I said, for my draft specifically, it's a lot of what I would do in those spots. If I'm going to be taking a quarterback that early, I want to at least have the belief that that guy can become something like better than an average quarterback in the NFL. Because let's say you get, and say you get into a Niners situation where you have a Jimmy G or you have a Brock Purdy or someone like that, and you're losing to the Super Bowls against an all-time great like a Patrick Mahomes, you can't help but sit there and somewhat compare. And so if I'm going to take QB in the first round, I don't want to look back and be like, man, we got a very mediocre guy that, depending on how good our team eventually becomes, we're sitting here wondering what our team had somebody better than him. And that's kind of how I feel about it.
And then, like you don't want to waste I don't say your time, but like some good years, some good teams,
right?
That like where it's like, man, like if we just taken a chance and gotten a better quarterback as opposed to just being okay with this guy, it's like I said, I'm sure that's one of the reasons why they went out and got Trey Lance. It didn't work, but at least they tried, and yes, they kind of lucked into Brock Purdy, but and we'll see how it goes because I think Purdy after this year is eligible for extension. So like sometimes that happens and such, but it'll be interesting. Like I said, and that's why I'm fine I didn't do trades because I think McCarthy is not a top 10. Like I said, if I had a big board, McCarthy probably would not be. I know he's my third. He would not be in the top 10 my big board. Honestly, maybe not top 15, but it'll be interesting to see how this all pans out. If some of this, because there's been smoke and mirrors about him being as high as 3, maybe 2. I doubt the Commanders do that though. But I wouldn't be shocked if I don't think New England would either. It just feels like you mentioned, just like you're gonna use a third pick on McCarthy, like the guy that I don't, like you said, like you alluded to, just not as much meat on the bone or upside as even a Drake May or even I would say Penix or Bo Nix, especially arguably. So but draft will always surprise us, and I'm sure there'll be outside of McCarthy or maybe including McCarthy, plenty of surprises and such, going into it.